Alrighty. Hello, can you hear us, Kyle?
Yeah, just a second.
No worries. Awesome. Well, first off, I want to thank you so much for your time being here. Literally less than 30 seconds ago, everyone in this room saw Skinamarink, either revisited or for the first time. And so we're all here to just ask you questions, get to know a bit more about you and just the process of creating something like this. And I guess one of the things I want to begin with, I'll try to ask one question and then I'll have people in the audience ask their own questions just to sort of get more those student-led questions. But I guess one of the first questions I have for you is, what was it like going back to your childhood home back in Edmonton and shooting there? And what was that process like to revisit some of those same rooms, that same staircase? Overall, just get the same vibe or the same feeling of being a kid in that same home that you used to shoot this movie in.
So, like, I don't live that far from that house, and I had visited my parents quite a bit leading up to it. So it wasn't as strange as you would think, but there were certain things as far as like the biggest thing was covering up all the windows with like black paper and being in the house during the day and having no light come in was kind of weird. And there's another thing was on the last day of shooting, we filmed in Kevin's room, which was my room, and it's just like 2 or 3 shots that are barely in the movie. And that was surreal, just being like, oh, this is like the room that I dreamt of doing this for years, and now I'm doing it weirdly enough, like in this, like that was a strange thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that insight, just because that room is just so, all the rooms in the movie in general are so ingrained into what we just saw. And even my first watch last year, I'll never forget like the scenery or the feeling of it. I have a few other questions, but I'm going to go ahead and ask if anyone else in the audience has any questions or anything you want to ask the director regarding the movie, his shooting style, his past with his YouTube channel, basically anything you'd like. Don't feel pressured, but I am putting y'all on the spot. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
So,
oh, sorry.
oh yeah.
Give me 1 sec. I'm gonna turn on a microphone. Test. Yo. Okay. Alrighty. Here you go.
So since this film is kind of a part of the whole kind of analog horror, what are there specific like internet influences that like influence this film or stylistically or narratively, I guess?
Yeah, so stylistically, the liminal space phenomenon and other kind of more obscure stuff, like have any of you heard of weirdcore?
Yes.
Yeah, so weirdcore, Marble Hornets, but I hadn't watched Marble Hornets in forever, like, but I did watch it in college. And other stuff, like the other one would be just kind of weird, obscure, and I know it's cringe, but like creepy pasta stuff. So one in particular, I don't think it's creepy pasta, but it's called the Three Kings Ritual. And then creepy pasta I always thought was so interesting, just as a side note, because most of it's terrible, right? But when you found a really good one, it was really good, right? Which was kind of the fun of it too, like sifting through just piles of but what if phone and then finding a good one. That was always really interesting. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for answering.
every time I talk to someone about watching this film, which has actually happened a lot, all of my friends love this film.
Aw.
We end up talking about the exact context in which we watched it, just such a immersive atmospheric experience. So I guess what I'm wondering is, what is the exact best way to watch this movie?
That's tricky because I've heard conflicting things. I've heard people say you only have to watch it in a theater, you can't watch it at home. And then I've heard other people say you have to watch it on a laptop by yourself with headphones. So really what I think it comes down to is watch it in the way you most enjoy watching horror movies. And also, I think this goes for all horror movies in general, is do not like give it your undivided attention. Like, do not have your phone on you. And another thing I like to try to do with horror movies is I like to turn the volume up and like throw the volume remote away so that it's loud and I can't like ride the audio. Ideally, watch it at night in the dark, etc.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is like my third time watching this movie.
Aw.
Yes, nice. What is 572 days supposed to mean? Because that is genuinely the only thing I'm completely stumped about.
I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
This is not a topper, but this is my 5th time watching this movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm a major fan of this film. What does the name Skinamarink mean? Like, why did you choose that as the name of the film?
Originally it was just supposed to be a working title. So I don't know if you guys would know, but in Canada in the 90s, there was this children's entertainment group called Sharon, Lois, and Bram who popularized it as a children's song. And kind of meant a lot to me when I was Kevin's age in the movie. And so I was watching some old Tennessee, like Elizabeth Taylor movie from the 50s, and they sung that song in the movie. And I was like, oh, I guess Sharon, Lois, and Bram didn't invent it. So I Googled the song just out of curiosity and found it's like a really, it's like turn of the century. No one actually knows who originally wrote it. And it stuck in my head. And then I thought, oh, this would be a perfect working title for the movie because, like, it's catchy, it's a kid's song, it's nonsense, it's kind of creepy sounding. Like, perfect working title. We'll come up with another title later, and then it just stuck.
Thanks.
Very cool, thank you.
Are there any other questions or anyone who wants to ask anything at the moment? Okay, I'll move the camera.
Hello. My question is, how challenging was it to like put on to the screen? Like, what was in your head?
Put what on the screen?
Like, what you imagine the movie to be like. Like, was it challenging to put that on like physical form?
It's not. I planned really heavily for it. Like, I shot listed from the script very heavily, and I knew the location we were filming in and out. I had a very specific idea. So for this movie, it was not particularly challenging. But that's because we had a fairly easy area to set up. Like, there were a handful of challenges. Like, I kind of wish that house looked more 90s than it was. But outside of that, like, for the most part, it worked.
Any other questions or anything anyone's curious about, wants to ask the director? Alrighty. Here you go.
From idea to like filming, how long did that take? And then I guess after filming to like screens, I'd like to know that too.
From idea to filming, like if you were to count the proof of concept short, like 3 years. If you don't count the proof of concept short, like if you count, okay, I'm gonna start pre-writing it, maybe a year and a half. And then if you count from filming to screens, just under a year. So, and when I say screens, I mean the premiere at Fantasia. If you count filming to actual wide release, it was like about a year and a half.
Any other questions? Anyone want to speak? Anyone?
Can you see the manuscript?
Pardon?
Like the screenwriting, the manuscript.
This
Yeah.
like right now on camera?
No, I mean just in general.
I can do that. That's the like that's yeah, I'll be right back. Okay. I'll show you a few things actually. So this was the our shooting schedule first off. And I want to show you if you see there. So this is for the copy I gave my DOP Jamie, who's a fan of The Simpsons. So I drew the dignity symbol from The Simpsons. And then what else do I have here? This is like the way I'm like, this is what happened to the shooting schedule, like it's all destroyed. And then, oh God, fucking kidding me? This whole thing. Okay. And then this is Jamie's copy of the script, which I also drew the dignity symbol from Simpsons. And yeah. That's like the closest I'm ever gonna get to sharing it like publicly, because people have asked like, can we see a copy? And I looked over the script fairly recently and discovered there's lots of parts that like kind of give away things or lead down a road that I ended up cutting, and I don't want to do that. Like I could like go back and like redact it like a CIA document, but I don't want to do that. But it is nice, like please tell everyone there is a physical, because like people sometimes I get the sense don't believe me when I say like, no, there was a script. I wrote down like we look at the ceiling and hear Kevin and Kit, like that's in the script. Like let's see. It's just downstairs hallway. Oh wait, it's backwards. Never mind. Okay. So
Perfect. Alrighty. Well, thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, I can.
What inspired you to make this movie? Is there anything in particular?
it's a lot of things. I find like that's with most movies. It's always you can't necessarily pinpoint one thing. Like there's probably a bajillion like if I was to like psychoanalyze myself, like there's probably bits of like the Syrian war in the movie, right? Like just as an example, like there's lots of stuff. Like I think every horror filmmaker wants to do their big scary house movie, and through a number of different things, that's what led me to making this. So
Did you always know that you wanted to do like horror films?
yeah, ever since I was like probably kindergarten, like which is when I got my first like Goosebumps books, which I never read, but I collected them. But I really like the TV show Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark? And got into like more mature horror like fairly young. For me, it was never like I like other movies, obviously. Like I'm not a horror, I don't know what you call it, like completist, but it was always horror for me.
Yeah, oh, and one last one for me, I'm sorry. What's your
Yeah.
like horror movie of all time?
Probably The Shining with or The Birds, but I don't know, but like it feels weird to pinpoint it. Have you there's this group I'm on called well, I had to leave but then come back, called A Nightmare on Meme Street, a horror shit posting group. And everyone's been posting their like top 20 or 10 favorite horror movies. And like it's so weird seeing the differences. Like some people they just love like fucking corn syrup gore shit, and like to me, like I love those movies. Like I love gore, I love Final Destination and Saw, but it's like I can't imagine ranking that above like The Shining, right? Like so I don't know.
I'm just curious, how many actors worked on this movie?
Well, technically five. So the two kids, the mom and the dad, and the kids were really good. And me, because I did like some voice work.
The scary voice?
Yeah, I do this. I do the scary voice, and also I do, but it's like it's heavily processed, so I put it through like some sort of voice processor to change it my voice to sound like a woman, and then I put it through the same processor to make it sound like a man, and then I layered them in Adobe and like fucked around with them so that and like played with it that way. And also I did the same like gender voice changing thing for the 911 operator. Like I'm the 911 operator, but I actually did like take that role seriously. Like I like was like, okay, how do I make my voice sound like a middle-aged woman who's like a 911 operator? And I like got into character and like I took it like seriously, and then I put it through a processor, changed it, yada yada.
Thank you.
Oh, and the phone, because he's the star of the movie.
Just to add to that real quick, I was in my attic not too long ago and I found my own childhood.
Oh,
So I brought that
the
to
yassified version.
Definitely. It's standing right next to my Blu-ray, totally.
Oh, I like
So I
your
did not-
nails.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions from anyone? Anyone want to ask anything? Oh, okay.
Go Lumberjacks.
Because I'm on to, let me run. Alrighty.
I heard a lot of criticism about this being like a feature-length film. Like I've heard people say like, oh, I wish it was a short film, but you just look through the script and there was so much there, so I just wanna know like what kind of comments you have to say about that, cause it seems like everything had a reason.
Yeah, like honestly, I don't know. Like I did do kind of a short film version of it, and after I finished it, I'm like, oh, this really should be a feature, and I turned it into a feature, and a lot of people really loved it, but some people really hated it. So I really don't know. I really think this movie is kind of a unique animal. You know, you could make a movie like Megan, which most people like, but there's very few. Like, I don't know how many Q&As the director of that does. I don't know how many Megan tattoos there have been. So there's been 9 Skinamarink tattoos, by the way. So I don't know, like I really don't. And I've been trying to like kind of put it aside because I've been working on my script for my second movie, and it's hard to write that when you have those criticisms in your mind because you'll start like focusing on it and try to prove those criticisms wrong, some of which might be valid, right? But it's just not a good mindset to be in. So I just have tried to block it out, tried to roll with the punches, tried not to take it personally, as difficult as it's been, but yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. For what it's worth, I think it works for this movie.
Oh, thank you.
Alrighty, and you had a question? Okay.
I am curious what lessons you learned from writing and creating this movie that you're taking away into creating your second film, your new film.
Like my biggest thing was like trust your instincts. So like a lot of the reaction to particular sequences and particular scenes in the movie that I felt worked when I was writing and editing it were true. Like people reacted the exact way I wanted to for the most part, or people who liked the movie reacted the way I wanted to. So that would be one of my biggest things. Trust your instincts. Be nice to everyone who gives you help. Like, don't be a diva. Although I kind of knew that beforehand. And then another thing was like, don't necessarily take everyone's advice because some people's advice, whether they're willing, like conscious of this or not, is bad advice, right? Like, there's a local horror producer in Edmonton who, for a producer in Edmonton, he has a relatively impressive resume. I won't say his name, but I was put in contact with him while I was doing the rough cut, and he provided, in retrospect, incredibly terrible advice that I'm lucky I didn't take. Like he wanted to like basically he looked at horror audiences with such disdain, like, oh, they're stupid, they need stuff to be spoon, like that's just the way it is. They want to see I don't want to name anything, but like, so he's like, oh, he was texting me while he was watching my rough cut, which was kind of shitty, and said like, oh, if this movie ends with Kevin waking up from a coma, that's brilliant. And I thought in my mind, like, A, like, why are you texting me when you're supposed to be watching my movie? And B, like, brilliant is not what I would call that. And the thing is, and he had a phone call with me after, and he's like, you really should do reshoots and like shoot it so that he's waking up out of a coma and all this stuff. Like, and the wonderful poetic justice is this idiot passed on the movie, so he's dog shit. But like, and like the thing is too, like even before I released the movie, I thought like stuff like, oh, he's in a coma, people will think that. And that's like the cool thing about the movie is that it's vague, and you can have any ending. You can have every copy as a personalized copy. And this guy wanted to ruin it by like saying, no, this is the ending. So don't take everyone's advice. Take like some advice, but like try to sift through it and use your best judgment. And other stuff too. Like sometimes people, they'll give you advice based on the area they're in. So, like, if they're in the documentary world, they might give you advice that they think applies to making horror movies or genre movies, but it doesn't. And they're not trying to mess you up. That's their real. So, don't take everyone's advice. Don't even take all of my advice because, like, I am like in a very privileged, unique, like this happens one every couple years in horror situation. So even my advice doesn't necessarily apply or may be malaligned. So
Thank you.
What was your favorite scare from the movie, both to make and to watch other people react to or get scared by?
like probably like just the entire look under the bed scene. It was like the most fulfilling to shoot. It was the most fulfilling to edit. It was the most fulfilling to think up. The reaction to it in the theaters has been the most positive, and it almost identically came out to how I pictured it while I was writing it. Like it's the perfect example of like this is what I wanted to happen and this is what happened. So
Thanks.
Perfect. Any other questions or anything anyone wants to ask? Last minute, anything? Alrighty, then I guess I'll ask you yet another question.
yeah.
So with the reception that this movie has been receiving, I mean, from how I discovered this movie was hearing some of my favorite movie reviewers on YouTube speak about it, whether it be positively or negatively. People of those influence, people such as like Chris Stuckman, Adam from Your Movie Sucks, Deep Focus Lens, people really going in depth to like explain what they thought about this movie or how it affected them. How has that overall word of mouth affected not only like the release of this movie, but how people watch it, people perceive it, and how did you react when you saw some of those people? I don't know if you watch any of those YouTubers, but if so, what was that like going from I guess just a short horror film maker from Edmonton who would recreate people's nightmares on YouTube based off of YouTube comments to making a feature-length film that people are going to festivals to watch about and thus being spread around the internet word of mouth?
Yeah, so well, first off, when the movie went viral, that was because the movie was accidentally leaked and heavily pirated. And that was a kind of like it was a really unique experience to watch from this side of it because it was like there was a whole other thing too, like our distributor, not Shutter, but the distributor that actually like owns the movie, Bayview Entertainment, they were telling me, oh, don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay, well, shouldn't we tell Shutter that their movie's been pirated? And they're like, no. And it's like, well, then what, like, why, if it's not a big deal, why? So that was a whole weird thing to watch. Also, like, in retrospect, it was great, but I didn't know that at the time, right? Right? Like, in retrospect, I don't think we would have gotten 800 theaters for MLK weekend if it weren't for the piracy. So thank you, pirates. But I would say as far as like seeing people talk about it and critique it, it's surreal. Like I was talking with on the director's commentary, my DOP Jamie, and he said he's like, it's just so weird. Like we made a movie and people don't like it or people do like it. Like he's like, that's just a weird thing to live with. Not like, oh, I made a short film and it played at like our school's film festival. Like we made a movie and like people in like Japan have feelings about it, right? Like it's a surreal thing. And it's not always good, but sometimes it's great. And I feel again really humbled and lucky.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for your time. We only have a few minutes left. I apologize. I'm a college student. I still have the free version of Zoom. But
No one pays for Zoom.
yeah, we just go, we just do as much as we can. But yeah, well, everything you said and just being here today, and despite the hour-long wait, which once again, I apologize for. I'll make sure I do better. Or
You know, it's just it's a weird thing, like, because like Arizona and Hawaii are kind of unique in that. So like it's not a problem that most people would think to have happen. So like don't feel shitty about, like, shit happens.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. And this movie means so much to me because I've just gone through every stage, every watch where I'm like, oh my goodness, like, well, after like watching it for the first time, I'm like, when does this part come up? And I guess just the anticipation of that rewatch made it better for me. And like
Oh,
honestly,
cool.
really enjoyed upon the second watch. I apologize for the first watch. I didn't know it was leaked at the time. I was in
Oh no, don't worry about it. When the piracy was happening, I was like, fuck you, pirate. And like, and it got leaked from a Spanish film festival, so it's like, fuck you, conquistadors, right? And then like when we did 2 million in the first week, I was like, duh, 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 you are a pirate. Like I love pirates now. Like,
yeah. And since pirating it, I told people to watch it. I bought copies.
yeah, you
Don't-
paid for it with, like, you've more than paid for it in what you've done. Like the only kind of shitty thing was some people who clearly pirated it were like 1 star on Letterboxd. This is garbage, and it's like I can't. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going as for Halloween?
Oh, I don't know. I have.
Oh, they.
Harry.
A vampire.
Oh, that was my favorite one when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Sexy nun.
Wait, what?
Sexy nun.
Sexy elephant?
Nun.
Sexy Zelda.
No.
No,
I was a nun.
Okay.
80s not vampire.
Okay.
I'm just gonna put a bed sheet over my head and steal people's candies. Like, you know, the baskets where like it's take one, I'm not gonna do that.
I couldn't hear what you said.
I'm gonna steal people's candies as like a really bad ghost.
Okay.
Victorian vampire.
Okay. Vampire's so fun and so easy. Like when I was a kid, I always like going as Dracula specifically. And my mom, like, when I was like 6 or 7, she gelled my hair back. And she's like, so she gelled my hair back and she's like, you need to look handsome because that's how Dracula gets his victims. And I was like, she taught me like subtext.
well, once again, we're at the last 5 minutes, so I guess I'm just gonna end it here. Thank you so much again. I wish you the best of luck with your second film. As long as you're making movies, I will go and support them in any way I can. And hopefully so will the rest of these people, whether they like the movie or not. And yeah, I really appreciate you not only just being active here and doing these Q&As and interviews and all that kind of stuff. And soon I'm gonna listen to the director's commentary on the Blu-ray, but just being so active online, like a while ago I tweeted that phone in my attic and I just said like, wow, Skinamarink phone, and I got a like from you, and I thought that was so cool. So just being active online, be good or bad, because I know I think there was a point a week ago or two where you were like, I'm gonna leave Twitter. I was like, oh no, how do I contact them? And I'm like, oh, they gave me their email account, so we're all good.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate it. Thank you again so much. And everyone, let's give a round of applause for. Wonderful. Thank you so much again. Have a great night. And we're at the last 3 minutes. Is there anything you'd like to add or you'd like to say or anything like that?
I don't know. Thanks for having me. And I don't know.
Sorry for putting you on the spot.
I don't know. Okay.
No
All
worries.
right. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Rock.